It's time for the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner. Live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa. Here's your host, Jason Van Arkel.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner on 1240 AM, 102.7 FM KBIZ, and a live video stream on AttumwaRadioSports.com. We are live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa, and tonight we're getting ready for Week 8 of the high school football season. We'll be talking a lot about Ottumwa High football. Offensive line coach Brett Cancelar is our guest tonight. We've got 4 players as well. Quentin Bishop and Tanner Holman will be in our first segment, and then Andrew and Gage Cole in the second segment. We'll also talk Davis County football later on this evening with their head coach Kent Anderson, and Cardinal football before we're done tonight with their head coach Landon Miller. Now, there's a full slate of games for this next to last week of the regular season. We'll run them down for you real quick. Your Ottumwa Bulldogs have senior night tomorrow night at Schaefer Stadium. They take on Des Moines East, scheduled for a 7:30 kickoff. You'll hear it right here on KBIZ and see it right here on the live video stream at AttumwaRadioSports.com. Davis County coming off a big win over Albia last week. They're on the road at Mid-Prairie tomorrow night. That is a 7 o'clock kick. You'll see that video stream on AttumwaRadioSports.com as well. Van Buren goes back out on the road. They take on Mediapolis tomorrow night. That's a 7 o'clock kick on 92.7 KTWA. The Pekin Panthers are at home. They take on Belle Plaine tomorrow night at 7 on 101.5 KISS FM. And Centerville's at home tomorrow night. They take on Sadell. That'll be at 7 on 97.7 Tom FM. Cardinals on the road tomorrow night. They travel to Highland. Albia hits the road to face Williamsburg. Eddyville-Blakesburg Fremont travels to Central Lee. Fairfield at home to take on Washington. Oskaloosa back home. They'll face Knoxville tomorrow night. Sigourney Keota hits the road trying to go 8-0. They'll take on Wapello. And in 8-man football, Moravia travels to East Union, and Twin Cedars is at home. They take on Collins Maxwell. So that's your football Friday night schedule for Week 8. Weather should be a lot better this week than it was a week ago. Cold and windy for everybody involved last week. And normally we take a break right here, but we'll stay right here a little bit, slightly different schedule tonight. Not really so much in terms of our show, but when our show is over tonight, be sure to stay tuned on KBIZ. When we switch to news, and after our show tonight coming up at 7 o'clock, we will have the League of Women Voters City Council Forum. Ellis Kojo will be hosting that tonight at 7 o'clock. So we'll dive right into it. Ottumwa High coming off last week's game at Waukee, which we're not going to talk a whole lot about, but back home, taking on a rival in Des Moines East. It's senior night. Got a lot going on at Schaefer Stadium coming up Friday night. Again, we're joined by offensive line coach Brett Cancelar, and in a moment we'll talk to offensive lineman Quentin Bishop and Tanner Holman. 2 weeks ago, Brett, when you were on the show with me, you called the stretch of the last 3 games the purple stretch, Indianola, Johnston, and Waukee. Now it's over and done with, and I don't want to linger too much on last Friday night, but maybe start with this. What lessons can the players learn both from last week's game and the whole stretch of those district games against those tough teams?
Our biggest lesson is knowing that we've got to compete 4 quarters every weekend or every week. We know that, things start to go a little bit awry in the first quarter and the second quarter, maybe even third and fourth. We've got to be able to plug away for 4 full quarters. It's never going to stop. It's not going to be all of a sudden, hey, man, we had one bad quarter. I guess, let's just throw the flag up. We can't do that. We've got to fight until we get to the end of the games here. And I think that this week we have a great chance. We've had a good week of practice. We've had guys who have been working really hard all week. 2 days this week, we got after each other so hard that people were getting frustrated at each other, but we're pushing each other to get better. And I know that we can do that consistently on Friday. It's going to turn out well for us.
I know players and coaches don't really care for moral victories, and Waukee feels like a game you'd like to move on from as quickly as possible. But it was a tough night all around, but there were 2 instances where the defense came up with turnovers and plus territory, gave the offense a short field to work with, and you converted both those opportunities into touchdowns. Is that something that the offense can build on, some moments where they had an opportunity and they were able to make the most of it?
We do to use that opportunity to build on things. We know that when we can do those things and we can count on our defense, we can rely on each other in every facet to make sure that we can kind of put together the full picture. It may not have been the full picture for the entire game, but for those those times that we were able to connect offensively and defensively and get those both put together, we know that we can do that, and it gives us confidence to kind of keep rolling as we go through. Now, if we can do that first quarter and then continue to do it second, third, fourth, that's amazing for us. We don't want to do that in the third quarter and have to catch up again. We would rather do that in the first and just keep rolling from then on out, which I know we can do this week.
All right, now moving forward. Tomorrow night is senior night, and you look at the depth chart for the 5 starters on your O-line are seniors, including the 2 guys to your left, 2 of the team captains this week. Let's start with this. Those seniors in that O-line group, in that meeting room and on the field, what have those guys meant to this program? It's been a challenging 4 years for them growing up in this program. What have they meant to Ottumwa football?
I guess before I talk about Ottumwa football, but I'll talk about, I guess, my relationship with these guys is that these guys are the first group of kids that I taught when I first came to Ottumwa or came to Evans Middle School. They're the first group of kids that I saw go all the way through the entire football program for all 4 years. And to me personally, it's been an absolute joy and pleasure seeing these guys grow, get better, and work hard to become the things that they want to be. That's been incredible. For Ottumwa football, there have been times where it has been rough, but they've also been the guys who know and have pushed through to see that there is a silver lining in every single thing that they do. These are guys, all the 4 of the guys that are in here, and even I could say safely for all the seniors, are guys who have came in here and worked. They've been weight room guys who are almost 100% every summer. They're guys who are working in the off season. They're guys who are going out for every sport to be able to get themselves to be better. These 2, those 2, all the seniors. They have meant that for us, without their unwavering support for us coaches and our program, this program it'd be rough right now. They've worked their tails off, and I thank them so much. Not to blow too much smoke up your guys' butt or anything. Sorry, guys.
Now, you talk about coming out and having a good week of practice, physical week of practice. I don't even really have to ask this question, but I want to get your thoughts on it anyway. Obviously, I don't think you guys as coaches had to say too much to any of the guys, especially the younger players, about making sure that these guys' last home game tomorrow night is something special.
Right, yeah. The very first thing that we had our meetings on Sunday, and Coach Curran, who is a ride or die Ottumwa guy, always has been, just wearing the red and white, comes in and says, it's our last game on Schaefer. He's pushing that really hard. And, we've emphasized that into our practice this week. We've talked, this is the last time you're going to take this turf. This is the last time you get to play on turf this year. Next week we get to go to a grass field for the first time in a while. So we're really emphasizing that. We're talking about senior night. I know these guys got their pictures taken with their moms on Sunday. I mean, it's a big deal for us. We want to end this thing on a good note. Like I said, that hard work that those guys have put in, I want them to be rewarded. We want them to be rewarded. They also want to be rewarded for the things that they've done. So I think we can do that.
All right, offensive line coach Fred Cancelart, and he'll be staying for the second segment, but we're going to head down the line here and talk to senior Quentin Bishop. I guess I call you right tackle this week. Yep. After all the positions you've played this year, you're back on the line at right tackle. I want to go back to last week for just a moment and focus on that kickoff play that we talked about briefly after the game. You're on the front line. They've been kicking off strangely the whole game. They try a squib kick, and it comes to you, and you're able, even as you're starting to run backwards, you're able to grab the ball and you give your team possession outside the 40-yard line, maybe best field position we had off a kickoff the whole night. And I know some of that was just instinct on your part, but just kind of briefly take us through how that happened, how you saw it from your perspective.
I was like, it's always a thing that Matt Gravy says, watch the onside. So it's always in the back of our minds, but, I mean, it's never came to me. So it just was coming straight at my head, and it just kind of bounced into my hands, and I was lucky to get it, I guess.
Well, but you got your hands on it, you made the play, and that was in a game where the kickoffs are an adventure at times. I think that was a pretty big play, at least I thought at that point in the game. So, all right, everybody's going to get the senior night questions tonight, and you get the first one. Have you thought a lot about it being senior night? I know the coaches have talked about it last time to play at Schaefer Stadium. Have you spent a lot of time thinking about it, maybe kind of envisioning how you want it to go, or is it kind of thing where you're trying not to think about it too much?
I didn't really think about it until this week. I've thought about it a lot, and I definitely want to go out on a win. So I think that's been everybody's thing this week is we need to go out. The last time playing at Schaefer, we need to end on a good note, and with that, and then look on to next week.
All right, I'll have you hand the headset over to center Tanner Holman, another senior captain who's both you guys are veterans of this show now, so you kind of know what to expect from me. So, Tanner, I want to take you back a year. Let's go back to last year's senior night, the win over Mason City. And your perspective as a junior, and you and the rest of the guys being able to send that senior class out with a win. How did that feel from your perspective that you were able to send those seniors out on top?
Well, it felt really good. It was pretty hard at the end because me and Q have been with them for a while. As sophomores, we played varsity with them, and it's pretty tough at the end of the game. Just seeing those guys upset and it makes you pretty upset too.
And now you're going to be in the position they were in a year ago. And hopefully, I asked this of Q, I asked this of you, and hopefully I'm not taking you guys out of any of your mental zones by asking this, but you're going to put that red jersey on for the last time tomorrow. And have you thought much about how that will mean? Have you thought about maybe trying to savor the moment, or are you trying not to think about it?
I've kind of kept it in the back of my head. I just want to come out and play my best game like I've done all year long, but it's always in the back of your head. Just that's your last game you're ever going to play on that field. So.
And what would it mean, and I'm going to ask Andrew Engage this as well, you're playing East, and that's a team that's one of Ottumwa's conference rivals in every other sport, and we go head-to-head with them in a lot of things. What would it mean? Would it mean a little more to get a win over East on senior night for you?
Yeah, I think so. Everyone's it feels pretty good, but I think East will be pretty nice if we beat them.
All right. Center Tanner Holman, right tackle this week. He's been linebacker, defensive end. I'm waiting for you to run back kickoffs. Well, you did field a kickoff. I guess we just talked about that. Quentin Bishop. And offensive line coach Brett Cancelar. And Coach will stay with us. And coming up after the break, we'll talk to Andrew and Gage Cole as well. It is the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
Are you looking for someone to capture the special moments in life, such as senior photos, weddings, family portraits, baby pictures, or even your furry friends? Look no further than Lee's Photography in Ottumwa to schedule your appointment. Brian, Connie, and the staff at Lee's Photography have the knowledge and experience to capture your special moments and make your vision come to life. Visit them on Facebook to see the range of their work. Lee's Photography on East 2nd Street, across from the Courier in Ottumwa, for all your all-around photography needs. Welcome back to the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
And we continue with the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner here on 1240 AM, 102.7 FM KBIZ, and the live video stream at AttumwaRadioSports.com. Jason Van Arkel with you live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa, continuing to talk Ottumwa football with offensive line coach Brett Cancelar. And now we're joined by senior captains and brothers Andrew and Gage Cole, and we'll talk to them in just a moment. Now, let's talk about the opponent tomorrow, Des Moines East. And at overview, last year they had a pretty high-powered passing attack, and they made enough plays defensively that they played some competitive games against the high-level teams in our district. This year they've taken a step back, but they are coming off a win. They beat Mason City 17-13. And sadly, and you hate to have to mention this, but we need to, they're also playing this month having to deal with the death of a teammate, wide receiver Dominic Reedburn, who sadly lost his life in a car accident at the end of September. So it's been a tough month for Des Moines East, and certainly our thoughts and prayers, our sympathies with them, and also kudos to the crowd at the Ottumwa Johnson game 2 weeks ago. I believe raised $1,390 to be contributed toward his family. So good on the Ottumwa and Johnson fans that night. There's no easy way to transition from mentioning that into a question about football, but when you look at East coming into tomorrow's game, what are your first impressions of the Scarlets?
I think that kind of that old school CIML flavor a little bit. They're going to be a team that has fast guys, has big brutes as offensive and defensive linemen, and has a quarterback who's going to be very mobile. I guess not being from Ottumwa, but just knowing about the CIML and knowing some of the offenses and defenses that they run, you see a lot of that stuff. I know that those guys are going to be really good at that. They're also going to be guys who are going to be very aggressive and ready to jump at the flip of a hat on this stuff. They're fast guys, strong guys, big guys. We just got to be able to keep our heads down and keep working the whole time.
And now we'll narrow the focus a little bit and talk about your guys on the offensive line and the battle in the trenches. Now, East held Mason City to 29 rushing yards, and Mason City doesn't run the ball well anyway, so I don't know how much you can read into that. But your team's also more committed to running the ball than Mason City is. So what do your guys up front need to do tomorrow night to carve out some running lanes for Gage or Andrew or Kai or anybody who might be carrying the football?
Well, I think our first thing is, and I think these guys have heard me say it enough at practice, we've got to just stay low and run our feet. That's our. If we can do that really well, then these guys will be able to get in the end zone more than anybody we've ever had. Okay, I know that whenever we focus and do our jobs, I know that this week we got on Quentin and we got on Tyler and we got on all those guys and we challenged them to, hey, you've got to stay low every time. You've got to come off aggressive. We've got to get to where we be, as Brody said, peed off and make sure that we do that professionally every time, then we can do our job. We said at the beginning of the week, you guys, your job and your challenge this week is to run your feet and stay low and arrive peed off every time. So they've met that challenge, and which has been very good for us. And like I said, practice has gone really well for those guys because of that. So I think that that with our guys, if they can focus on those three things, we're going to do okay.
And then, obviously, you guys have to pass protect as well when we drop back to pass.
Right.
The depth chart Coach Goodwin sent me this morning has Trey Swartz listed as a number 2. I don't know how much he'll be able to play. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, he'll be able to play some. And if he does, that opens up more options in the passing game because, obviously, when he was right, Newton couldn't stop him before he got hurt. So has there been any more emphasis in practice on pass blocking at all? Because I know that you look back the last few games when Adam Dennison does drop back to third. I'd like to give him a bit more time.
Right. No, we have. I mean, I can go ahead and say it today and yesterday. We've been working with our tackles and our guards and working on getting those kick steps. I've had guys going to try to help out with anybody and do stuff like that. They've been moving their feet better. We're trying to make it safe for Adam to be able to drop back and be able to have the time to see what he can get on those. Whether that be Trey, who if he's ready to go tomorrow, whether that be Blaze running one of the go routes, whether that be Gravy coming across the middle or Andrew coming on a BYA, we've got to be able to have the time to be able to do that stuff.
Again, offensive line coach Brett Cancelar getting his kids ready to hopefully hit East hard and hit them often tomorrow night. And
that's the goal.
We'll turn our attention now to the players who've joined us for this segment. Start with Andrew Cole, senior safety and running back, and just about anything else they might ask him to do on this team. Andrew, another senior night question from another captain, and you and Gage get to experience this together. It's kind of a unique thing that brothers don't often get to do. How special has it been for you guys to get to play together in this program, and have you guys talked about what it'll be like to play in your final home game?
We haven't really talked about it a lot, but, we just always grew up playing together. It's just something we've always done. So.
Now, not asking you to say anything that might be bulletin board material, but I did ask Tanner this, and you guys have faced a couple of top 10 caliber teams the past couple of weeks. Now you're taking on an East team. On paper, that looks like certainly a winnable game for you guys. And East has been Ottumwa's rival in sports for a number of years. Obviously, East is not the main motivation for this game. Obviously, there's plenty of motivation. It's senior night, your last night out there. You guys are hungry for a win as well. But would there be a little more satisfaction to get that win, to get that second win of the season, to win on senior night and do it over East?
Yeah, I think so. Just running against them in track and just playing like baseball and anything like that, it'd be nice to get a win.
Now, if you could maybe kind of boil it down to this is always a tough question for football because there's so many things that go on in football. But if you could boil it down, what's the one thing that you would like to see the team do well tomorrow night in order to get a win?
Just everyone has to play hard. Everyone get to the ball.
Andrew Cole, senior safety and running back, and now I'll have him hand the microphone down to Brother Gage. Cole, senior fullback and defensive end, and again, you never know what these guys are going to be asked to do. Everybody's been so versatile on the team this year. Same question as I asked Andrew. Obviously very special to you guys to spend all this time together in the program, and now you're going to go out there one final time together on senior night. What has it meant to be able to share this experience of playing high school football with Andrew?
It's meant a lot. It's helped me continue playing football. I remember in middle school it got a little boring, but competing against Andrew, it was a lot of fun because we kept going back and forth, and he kept calling me names, and I was like, okay, I'm going to beat him now. And then, yeah.
Does that continue at all, especially when you guys are on opposite sides of the ball in practice? You guys still kind of go at each other like that a little bit?
Yeah, Yeah.
Was that some of that this week, Coach?
Sometimes. We like to just get on everybody, but sometimes I can feel like there's a couple little digs in there between these two.
All right, let me end this with one more question about the senior class as a whole. And if my math is right, I count on the roster 16 seniors.
I believe so, yeah.
16 seniors. And you guys have been through a lot with this program. When you were freshmen and sophomores, the varsity was struggling to find wins. You got a couple wins last year. I got a win early this year, and you've been through a coaching change as well. How important do you think, Gage, are these last two games, and not only the games, but practice this week, practice next week, leading up to the games? How important is this 2-week stretch in terms of the legacy you guys want to leave behind as a senior class?
They're very important. We want to win both of these games. Even practices are going to be really important because we're going to get to practice with these same people again. And, yeah.
I know it's a lot to think about it, but is there – what do you want to – this may be a hard question to answer, I know, but what do you hope to leave behind? What do you hope that the juniors and the sophomores and the freshmen in this program watching you go out there for your final 2 weeks, what do you hope they remember about the senior class? What lesson do you want to teach them, if you can think of one thing?
Just to keep moving forward and, like, always go to the next play. Like, we had a little bit problem with that, but we learned to get over it, and now we're starting to do better.
All right, Gage Cole, Andrew Cole, and offensive line coach Brett Cancel are here. Guys, thanks so much again for the time, and golly, I'd love to see us beat East. I've called so many games in all the different sports against East, and I know you guys, you can't show it down on the field, but I can show it a little bit on the microphone. I'd love for you guys to beat the Scarlets. So tomorrow night, 7:30 kick right here on KBIZ and on the live video stream at AtumwaRadioSports.com. When we continue on the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner, we will switch gears and talk Davis County football. Davis County and Albia somehow on a cold night last week scored 108 combined points. Davis County got the better of it. We'll talk to their head coach, Kent Anderson, about that big win and about their big road trip this week. That's coming your way next on the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner, live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
Are you looking for someone to capture the special moments in life, such as senior photos, weddings, family portraits, baby pictures, or even your furry friends? Look no further than Lee's Photography in Ottumwa to schedule your appointment. Brian, Connie, and the staff at Lee's Photography have the knowledge and experience to capture your special moments and make your vision come to life. Visit them on Facebook to see the range of their work. Lee's Photography on East 2nd Street, across from the Courier in Ottumwa, for all your all-around photography needs.
As a National Guard or Reserve member, you served your country. Now let VA serve you.
I wouldn't be here today as a successful woman without the help that I received.
Your VA honors your service by providing a wide range of veterans benefits. From home loans to job training, VA benefits can help with some of life's toughest challenges.
What's important about VA benefits is they don't just touch you as an individual. They can touch your parents, maybe your grandparents, your child.
Go to benefits.va.gov/guardreserve to learn more, including how to apply online using eBenefits.
I just finished a master's degree recently, and now I'm working on another degree as well. So the military made that all possible. My veterans benefits made that all possible.
No matter what the time is, apply for your benefits. You earn them. VA is ready to help you.
Achieve your next mission. Learn about and apply for your VA benefits today.
Welcome back to the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
And welcome back to the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner on 1240 AM, 102.7 FM KBIZ, and the live video stream at AtumwaRadioSports.com. Jason Van Arkel with you live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa. Time now to talk Davis County football with head coach Kent Anderson. And Davis County is coming off, are we sure this isn't a basketball score? 59-49, a win over Albia. No truth to the rumor that Gavin McCall just scored another touchdown. But I guess the first question is, have you caught your breath yet? That's an amazing score.
It was quite a week. You know, it was homecoming week, which made it even more interesting and more. There's just so much going on. And, you know, just it was a beautiful night just from our perspective, of course. You know, we did a lot of things. We had the end zones painted. We had fireworks, and it was homecoming. We tried to add the extra pageantry, and thank goodness we played well enough to win, and at times really, really well on both sides of the ball. At times, you know, you have to give Albia credit because they fought, and, you know, Blake Chance, he can throw it. He runs around and throws it pretty well. So, but all in all, for us, it was a great night.
Now, we mentioned Gavin McCall, and the reason I brought him up, he was one of our Ottumwa Radio Athletes of the Week this week. 259 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. And your team had 323 yards on the ground as a whole. We talked last week about how the run game started to come around a week ago. What allowed it to explode this week? I mean, you're putting up rushing totals that those big Des Moines schools would love to have each week.
Yeah, it's a culmination of a lot of things. We made some switches, we talked about that last week, and Caden Hill and moving him, to the O-line. Just the leadership there is big. And then we just kind of put things together. I think we just kind of, things aligned for us that night. We were mentally ready. And as I had mentioned last week, I just thought we had 3 good weeks of practice. And I just at some point we had to play to our potential and play well. And certainly the first quarter was big. So, things just kind of lined up for us. It was one of those nights where the ball kind of bounced our way a little bit. And I guess it wasn't so. The kids played hard, and we did have a couple of interceptions and block punts, but those aren't bouncing our way. We're making that happen. I have to give our kids credit, but I don't want to take too much away from Albie because they did fight back and showed a lot of character by coming back and fighting and making a game of it in the second half.
Now, we talk each week about Carson Mater and his growth as a quarterback. Didn't have huge yardage totals, but 16 to 26, so he was efficient. And he didn't need the big yardage totals because you got the run game going so well. But he was efficient. He threw 4 touchdowns, only 1 interception. And it seems like he did a good job of managing the game and just keeping the offense moving. And I think maybe that's as important as anything he could have done in a game where both teams are going up and down the field.
Jason, I hope he's listening because we tell him the exact same thing. It's like being the point guard. You don't have to score all the points. You got to distribute the ball and let your scorers score and do those things and make good decisions. And with the exception, there was one that interception. We wanted to run a naked keep, and he decided to throw it, trying to make something happen. With that exception, his decision making was excellent. We're increasing the way we're throwing the ball with him. It used to be all pre-snap reads. Now we're getting down to downfield reads, high-low reads, and vertical reads and horizontal reads, and he's doing great. So I'm loving the development and the maturity I'm seeing out of him, and exactly what you just said. Just distribute the ball and let things happen.
Now, defensively, and you mentioned this right at the top, Blake Chance, Albie's quarterback, great quarterback. He'd keep throwing and throwing. He threw it 51 times in that game. And he had 6 touchdown passes, and normally when a QB does that, that team wins the game. But your defense picked him off 3 times, and he recovered a fumble. You talk about block punts. I think it's pretty clear that even though both offenses are moving, it was your team's ability to force turnovers. It was one of the keys to winning a game that turned into an absolute shootout. So sometimes it's not so much about the yards you give up. It's about the plays you make at the right time.
Absolutely. We started a 28-0 run, and for us, that's a big first quarter. That's sometimes it's been our, that's outpointed our total for the whole game at 28 points. So in the first quarter, 28-0. I was pleased that we took the tempo to them right away. We were fired up. And just homecoming week, the kids wanted to put on. I think they just loved the way the field looked in the field and the whole pageantry of it all. And they responded to that, and that's very important. So 21-0 or 28-0. Albie didn't have a first down in the first quarter. We had 2 block punts in the first quarter, 2 picks, 1 pick six. Things just kind of went our way, but we made that happen.
Now, one final question about last week before we move on, because we talked last week about how the weather was going to get cold, get chilly, it was going to be windy. Usually when that happens, scoring gets held down at least somewhat. So to me, it's incredibly surprising that you get your first cold weather game of the season and the teams combined for 108 points. Did that surprise you at all? Or as the game started to develop, were you thinking, how is this even happening?
Oh, yeah. I was thinking, wow, I would love to have scored just 28 points, for the entire game, because that's, usually if you hold somebody under 20, the chances are winning. That's kind of the rule of thumb. You can kind of throw that out sometimes in high school football or with today's modern offenses. But I was I was surprised. 2 things. One, I was surprised that they didn't throw the ball well early. But one of the choices we made was to kick early, and while the wind was still blowing. As the game went on, the wind died down. So they were throwing into the wind that first quarter, and we had a little momentum, and we also had the wind. That was a good thing that happened to us there early. So that surprised me. And then just the way teams kept scoring. They're not a deep roster, neither are we. But as I think teams that don't have those deep rosters, they benefit from cooler weather, and our kids will be able to play at a higher level for the entire game.
All right, moving on to this week. You're going to Mid-Prairie. They're 4-3. Final road trip of the year. Now, Mid-Prairie is coming off a game where they just destroyed Eddyville-Blacksburg-Fremont, 62-7. At first glance, just looking at their numbers, looks like they have some balance to their offense, and their defense has forced a lot of turnovers. Now, I'm wondering if the video of their game against EBF is as scary to watch as the score would indicate. I'll make that your first question. You look at them on film, you look at the way they played last week. If they play that way this week, just how scary is Mid-Prairie as an opponent?
With a capital S, scary. They are. They're big, they're physical. They run to the football real well. They're just going to, sometimes you know what the play's coming and they don't care. We saw that a little bit against Pekin early in the year. We knew it was coming and they just ran it right at us. But I think probably Mid-Prairie's bigger and more physical than Pekin was. In fact, they played and they 41-pointed Pekin at that point early in the season. So they are big and they are physical, and it's it's a good match for us. I mean, in terms of we need to take that next step. I thought in the last 2 weeks we matched up physically well with Albia and Eddyville. This is a different type of matchup. We don't match up well with them just in the terms of size, in the terms of style. They're going to, again, put it back in the phone booth at times and just run it right at you. They can spread you out. Their quarterback is mobile. They have those dimensions. So they're good. It's going to be a really tough test. But again, we're practicing well. We had a pretty good week of practice. There's a lot of confidence. But this is a different level in terms of physicality. So it'll be a really, really tough challenge.
And the next question I had was, what is the biggest challenge about taking on Mid-Prairie? But you're talking about their physicality, and I would guess that's your answer.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just big and physical, and there were times on that video even our own kids, ooh, that was some. So, but Eddyville's offense was kind of geared toward that. You're going to see those hits when you run an option. You're going to see the quarterback pitch it and get whacked. And he certainly was, and I felt bad for the kid sometimes because Mid-Prairie is physical, and that's a different style for us to see. So we'll have to do some things, and we think we might have found some things that we can try to take advantage of or take a look at and just see if we can get some movement that way.
Now, I think one of the hardest things to do in football is sustain momentum from week to week. Obviously, you've got to wait a week between games, and maybe it's even harder to do at this level because the quality of the opponent can change so much from week to week. So you guys had to be riding high after last week's game, but how do you make that carry over to this week when you're hitting the road to face a tough team?
Maturity. We did talk about, I said, hey, we just won one game. It's not like we're undefeated and we're playing in the state championship or the Super Bowl. So let's get back down to earth. So maturity, and you learn at a young age as an athlete and as a coach, success is sometimes just as hard to handle as adversity. And for young people, they get a little success and they think they've got it. They got it all figured out. For athletes in general, they think they got that. And sometimes you got to move on to the next one just as fast as you want to put that one to bed that you played horribly. And thank God you got a game the next week you can get ready to prepare for. So you kind of put that one behind you and move on to the next one. You have to do the same kind of thing. You have to put the homecoming game behind you and start talking about the next one and correcting mistakes and moving on. So I just kind of reminded them, we just won one game, and having maturity of handling success. That's the big lesson we have to learn.
And you keep getting to my next question before I'm able to ask it, but that was my question. You talk about everybody was so fired up for homecoming. Now you're going out on the road. I believe this is going to be Mid-Prairie senior night, so they're going to be fired up. How do you prepare the kids for the mentality? You've been on the road before, certainly, but how do you take the kids from that high of homecoming and kind of reset them for that mentality of us against the world going on the road, knowing you got a team that's going to play you, that's got a lot of motivation to play at home?
It goes back to maturity again, just being able to handle that. And I thought last week we were fired up. I didn't feel we were just running around just, banging helmets and screaming and all that stuff. I just thought we were dialed in. We were dialed in with a quiet and sort of focus and just a different look in our eye. And, you can do that. I think you can do that sometimes better on the road. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. I think there's something to be said. We talked before about the cultures of bus rides, the culture of being together. I was a little concerned at homecoming. There's so many things going on, and before the game, getting everybody in the locker room and getting away from all that stuff. And it's easier to do when you're on the road because you kind of got them in your own environment. So we'll have some time to work on them mentally on the way up there, and that's a good thing. You can dial them in pretty good.
You talk about this game going to be physical against Mid-Prairie. I ask you every week about the health of your team, because we talked way back from the beginning of the year, the hope that your young guys would be able to stay healthy and make it through the year mostly intact. I certainly will be asking you this again after a physical game like Mid-Prairie, but what do you look like health-wise going into the game?
We're still missing Riley Heller. I think he's about a week away. We hope we can have him back next week for Central Lee in our last game. But, we have the virus going around our school, and a lot of school districts do, and a lot of kids missing school, missing classes. and you have to attend class to be able to play in the game. So we've gone through that this week. So some of our reps have been up and down, but I think pretty much we'll have everybody there. Some guys will have the sniffles and runny noses and coughs, but they're kind of getting through the tail end of that. So at this point, we're okay. We are going to miss Riley Heller and Clay Collier. We'll miss Clay this week, just with who sustained a minor concussion, who should be okay next week, but we're going to hold him out just to be sure and follow that protocol. So those two guys are very important, but it's just got to be that next man up mentality.
And then I ask you this just about every week, but it's pertinent every week for a team that's growing and is young and is learning like your team is. Win or lose, what would you like to see out of your kids tomorrow night? So you talk about them needing to take that next step against that bigger, tougher physical opponent. So regardless of what the scoreboard says, what do you want to see out of your kids that says, hey, we went out there, we got better?
And I compliment you on your question, because that's something that I've taken from these interviews, to be honest with you. And I talk about that with the team. So last week we discussed, what we thought we needed to do to be successful. And that was, at the end of the night, could we answer, are we a true team? Did we pull for one another? And it was quite simply, yes. And that kind of stems from this interview. And the same thing from these interviews that we're doing, I posed the team a question. What do we got to do to be successful? And I think what we need to do, it doesn't mean we have to be as big as them or hit as hard as them. We have to try to match their physicality. Again, I think that's something that's been missing, is we can line up and spread it out and do some things there, but when we play a physical team, we have not matched that yet. Centerville came out early and was physical on us. Pekin was definitely physical on us, and we didn't match it. And now, Mid-Prairie is going to come out and be physical. So we have to try to match the aggressiveness and physicality. We can't match their size, but, it's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight and the dog, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to come out and bite. And that's what I'm going to challenge the guys to be successful, and that's what we have. We have to come out and match physicality. So you've been helping us, and unbeknownst to you. But, no, it's great to have that retrospect and to be able to reflect on what we need to do to be successful. So I appreciate it.
Well, if I could do anything to help a team get better, then, hey, maybe I don't have to get into coaching or anything like that. Not that I would do anywhere near as good as you do.
You're doing fine.
I'm better talking in a microphone than anything else. But if I've helped a little bit, I'll go home and tell my wife, and she'll be proud of that. So
it's been very enlightening for us, really. It truly has.
All right, Davis County head coach Kent Anderson, again, his team taking on Mid-Prairie tomorrow night, 7 o'clock on the road. You can see the live video stream right here at AtumwaRadioSports.com. We'll take another timeout. When we return, we'll be ready to talk Cardinal football, as they still are looking for that first district win of the 2019 season. More of the Lee's Photography Coaches Corner coming up after this, live from Lee's Photography in Ottumwa on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
Are you looking for someone to capture the special moments in life, such as senior photos, weddings, family portraits, baby pictures, or even your furry friends? Look no further than Lee's Photography in Ottumwa to schedule your appointment. Brian, Connie, and the staff at Lee's Photography have the knowledge and experience to capture your special moments and make your vision come to life. Visit them on Facebook to see the range of their work. Lee's Photography on East 2nd Street, across from the Courier in Ottumwa, for all your all-around photography needs. Welcome back to the Lee's Photography Coaches Corner on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network.
And we are back on the Lee's Photography Coaches Corner on 1240 AM, 102.7 FM KBIZ, and the live video stream at AtumwaRadioSports.com. Live from Lee's Photography in downtown Ottumwa. Brian's here with a big smile on his face, trying to make sure he didn't get in the shot as he made us look good behind us. All the lights and the sign you see behind us, that's Brian making us look good. And we thank Brian for sponsoring and hosting the Leafs Photography Coaches Corner each week this year on 1240 AM, 102.7 FM KBIZ, and a live video stream at AtumwaRadiosports.com. Time to talk Cardinal football. And for the second time this season, we are joined by assistant coach Tyler Archer. And Tyler, first, as you were telling me, Landon normally does this, but you said he's with the junior high team for their final game tonight.
Yeah, he wanted to make sure that the junior high guys are seeing him there at their game, supporting them. And for them, the 8th graders, it's their last game before they're part of the high school team. So he wanted to kind of be there, tell them the expectations moving forward.
All right, so last week is a game that maybe you didn't want to deal with talking about too much. It's a cold night, tough night for your team. Belle Plaine wins it 52-20. I know it's not a great memory, but if you could maybe assess how the kids played and maybe find any positives that you and Landon and the coaching staff were able to take out of that game.
Yeah, I mean, Belle Plaine's the type of team, very similar in terms of school population when you kind of compare the types of kids that we have. And it's definitely a game we can show the kids saying we have to be in the weight room, we have to get bigger, we have to get stronger, we have to get faster to play with those types of teams. So now we can say, and we have the film to show exactly what will happen if we aren't getting bigger and faster, stronger in the weight room. Good things to take out of it. We still have guys making plays. In past, teams might have given up. We haven't given up at any point in time this season. It's always, hey, we can still be in this. We can go score points, and the score shows that. We never gave up, and we're still scoring, even a kickoff return to get back within a couple possessions towards the end of the game.
Now, I don't mean this to be a negative question at all, but just, you look at the score, and this is kind of the first game where you guys really gave up a really big number. Did it feel like a step back at all, or did it just feel like one of those nights, I guess?
It just kind of felt like one of those nights. Belle Plaine's a solid team. They have the big guys there to push the running backs forward. It just sometimes that happens, I think, in sports, that a team catches you and you give up some points. But like you said, that's the first time we've done that, so I think that's more of just a coincidence more than anything else.
Well, I guess it's kind of hard. You play 9 nights in a season. You might have one off night.
Yeah.
And, you do it against the wrong team and something happens. That happened in the game that I called on Friday as well. So how do the kids bounce back? I mean, obviously that was a rugged game. It's been a rugged stretch. You guys have been trying to break through and haven't quite been able to do it yet. How have the kids been in practice this week?
So this week we've definitely hit down on the discipline aspect. So kind of say like a heart-to-heart with them type deal in the locker room after the game, and we've really been pounding down discipline, and that's something that we have to be better at. If you look back at our games in terms of penalties and drop passes and just mistakes that we can control, we have to be more disciplined, especially in a team against Highland like this week where we can win, but we cannot beat ourselves like we have been.
How much of that is the youth of this team? You've got some seniors, some good senior leadership, but there's a lot of sophomores contributing as well. How much of that is just youth and inexperience and trying to learn on the fly as they're playing varsity football and trying to get better against better competition?
I mean, I can see how that's part of it. The senior guys definitely need to step up to push those guys forward. We have to remember that, like our quarterback, sophomore. A lot of our starting receivers are sophomores. We're down a starting running back, so we're kind of looking to the next guys. So I think experience could be part of that, and just kind of understanding the culture. What are the expectations? What do we need to get better at type deal? So hopefully moving forward, those guys are understanding what it takes to win. We've had success early in the season. Now we just have to make sure we do it again.
You mentioned being down a running back, and that's Gabe Reyes. A week ago I asked Coach Miller when he might be back. He was hopeful maybe he'd be back for the end of the year, but wasn't sure. So a week on, is there an update on Gabe Reyes? Is he at all available tomorrow night, or maybe looking at the final week?
He's going to try to go tomorrow. In terms of probably ready to go, he's probably looking at 75% just in that quad. So if he could give us anything tomorrow, that would be extremely hopeful. Most likely next week is what he's kind of been seeing and saying this, at least today even.
Well, hopefully, if he can give you something tomorrow night, great. And again, hopefully he can be back for the final game next week. Now, health-wise, the rest of the team, how's the team holding up physically? And you mentioned, again, it's a young team, and some of these guys are going through their first or their second year at the varsity level, and they've gone up against some really physical teams the last few weeks. How is the rest of the team holding up physically, and where do you stand injury-wise going into tomorrow?
Injury-wise, we do have some injuries, have some offensive linemen. Connor Mason, for example, he has a hairline fracture in his foot.
Ouch.
So he's going to try and go tomorrow. It's more of just a can he deal with the pain type thing. It's not anything too crazy and serious that he cannot play at all. So if he can kind of bear the pain, he can play type deal. Had a couple guys get dinged up at practice that we've had to deal with. So guys been having to sit out. So we've had to get some other guys ready to go. In terms of, like, for example, we had to move a tight end down to guard. So getting that guy ready to go. And we think he's ready. We just have to make sure he's got the reps and get him there just in case. So a little bit dinged up going into tomorrow.
Well, getting into week 8 of the football season, it'd be hard not to be dinged up at this point. So you're headed to Highland tomorrow night. They're 4-3. Looking at the numbers, they run the ball really well, but their quarterback has thrown it well enough to keep defenses honest. And on that side of the ball first, I guess, what's the key to slowing them down? Because you look at their game a week ago, Durant held them, I think, to 13 points. How do you slow them down? Maybe not the exact same way Durant did, but can you learn from that and find ways to slow that offense down a bit?
Yeah, definitely getting back to what we did at the beginning of the season, which firing bullets in our defense, so sending guys into gaps and blitzing, playing aggressive. If you look back at the early parts of the season, we're causing turnovers. I think we got a little bit too conservative trying to stop specific formations, and this week we're going to try and get back to firing bullets, being aggressive, and causing some havoc. So I think if we can do that, then we can, be successful tomorrow on defense and get back to not giving up a lot of points and a lot of yards.
Yeah, I want to say maybe it was like 19 turnovers forced in the first 4 games, and obviously that was not a sustainable pace because that's an insane pace. But in a game like this, especially on the road, and I believe this is going to be their senior night, so they're going to be fired up, I would think that you get an early turnover or two, it could really swing the momentum and keep the momentum in your favor in the early going and not leave you in a position where you're trying to catch up on the road, because that's a tough place to be.
Yeah, I mean, they always come out and support. Last year they even traveled well to Eldon when we played them last year. So earlier in the year we were getting the turnovers and we were taking advantage of them. We just haven't done a great job at that, moving the rest in the district play. So like you said, if we can get early turnovers and we can take advantage, go score some points off of those turnovers, I think we can, get them early.
Now, defensively, you talk about trying to score some points. Highland has given up some points this season, and it would seem like there might be opportunities for the offense. What do you think on the offensive side of the ball your kids need to do in order to take advantage of those opportunities?
So on the last couple of weeks, we've just been making too many mistakes. So receivers have got to catch the ball. Offensive linemen can't be, missing on blocking schemes and different things like that. Running backs have to hit the holes hard. So a lot of it, I think, for us is doing the things that we do well, catching the ball, running the ball, blocking well. And we did that in the early part of the season. We weren't dropping passes, weren't making the mistakes. So we have to get back to that. And I think we can take advantage in the air and in the ground. We've got some different formations this week where we're going to try and get guys the ball. So if we can do those things and get the guys the ball that we want to, so like the Griffin Grinders, the Jarrett Rays, the Landon Beckers, then we're going to have some success.
When you get to this point in the season and you start implementing, like you said, some different formations, different ways, I would assume that that's pretty exciting for the kids because, for most of the year, you've got your staples. You do the same things over and over because, if you can do something and do it well, you're going to keep doing it. But is it exciting for the kids kind of perk them up in practice and they get to try some different things, some new things?
Yeah, I definitely think there's been a different energy this week. Just kind of, it almost seems like the season's like starting over. You're learning maybe some new things and it's something that's exciting to get to do something new that we haven't done all year. So I think the kids are grasping onto it and they really enjoy that stuff.
And, you talk about, I keep kind of dancing around the mindset of this team because, maybe I've focused on this too much, but the whole thing about winning your first 4 games and then losing the next 5 last year, try not to repeat that this year. And so far you have not been able to find that district win that I think everybody's been wanting really, really badly, and I don't want to harp on that too much, especially since you guys have played so much better in district play this year than you did a year ago, but you don't have the results. And like Coach Miller said last week, you don't celebrate losses. He likes to see improvement, but at the end of the day, you still want that W. So how have the kids, and I may have asked this before in a different way, but how have the kids kind of held up, and when you look at them this week, how have they held up through these 3 losses and kind of kept how much of a positive attitude have they been able to keep knowing they've got, just 2 more opportunities?
Yeah, you can definitely tell there's a hunger there. They want the winning season. If you look back to a couple seasons ago when I came with Coach Miller, we were 2-6 or 2-5 because we had the bye week. So those guys, they're hungry. They want they want a winning season. So they definitely aren't going to roll over and just kind of send this one in tomorrow. They definitely want to get the win. They're excited to play tomorrow, and they definitely believe they can win, which is what I think is going to go a long way tomorrow. And I definitely think this is a game we can go into Highland and take.
How much do you rely day-to-day in practice on your seniors on the team? When we talk about having that mix of seniors and then so many young guys that are contributing, how much do you rely on those seniors to kind of keep that positive mentality up, to keep the team, even-keeled and go in the right direction? How much do you rely on that senior class?
I mean, it's definitely something that we have to rely on. If you look where our senior depth is, it's at the offensive line, so we kind of go with the offensive line. That's most teams. So if they're not playing well or they're kind of logging and lollygagging, whatever you want to call it, then we're going to struggle. So that's something that we've definitely played up all season long is, hey, you guys have to run us. You guys have to be the kind of the glue that holds us together. So make sure that we're focused and locked in, and I think that starts with the offensive line, and it has to, and that's where our seniors are, so it works out well. So I think they've done a really good job. They've embraced kind of being those types of leaders and brought those sophomores under their wings this year, so they really want to get the win and be the first team in a while that's had a winning season.
All right, and kind of wrap this up with two questions about tomorrow night. One, we'll start with the one that's in terms of winning or losing, because obviously, as we said, you don't celebrate losses. You want to go out there and get the W. And I asked this question of the Ottumwa guys and the Davis County guys as well. It's hard to boil it down to one thing because football has so many facets and can be so complicated. But if you could, is there one thing that your team needs to do well tomorrow night if they want a chance of coming out with a road victory?
I think I'm going to say play clean. We have to play clean, so we can't make the mistakes we've been making. We've had some interceptions at some inopportune times. We've had some inopportune penalties, and we've had some drops. And if you look at the stats for the last couple of weeks, all of those things have killed drives or given the team the ball maybe in our own territory and kind of gave them big plays. So if we have to play clean tomorrow to win against Highland.
And then a question about the game that doesn't involve the win or a loss, and I ask this of the other schools as well. What would you like to see, regardless of whether you end up winning the game or losing the game? What would you like to see out of the kids that tells you, hey, these guys are still growing, they're getting better, whether they get the outcome they want or not, they're going in the direction you want them to go. For the seniors who are heading towards their final game a week from now, and for the younger guys who are still growing and learning the program, what's the one thing you want to see, regardless of a win or loss, that will tell you, hey, we're still moving in the right direction?
I think what I want to see and what most of the coaches would say is I want to see us play together, and regardless if it's going well or if maybe not going well, how are they interacting with one another? We want it to be positive. We want them, hey guys, we got this. We got to coach each other up, and that type of interaction rather than getting down on each other, which I think we've done a pretty good job at. Much different than what it maybe was a couple years ago when we were first building this program.
And of course, you guys are still building. You've had a lot of early success the last 2 years, and I would say, and I know Coach Miller looked at me, like I said before, looked at me and said, we don't celebrate losses, but I look at the team and I see even through the last 3 games, you guys have played those same teams that just blew you out last year. You've been much more competitive with them this year. I definitely think you guys are moving in the right direction. I'd love to see you guys get a win over Highland. Love to see you guys get a win in the final week and have some real validation on the scoreboard for what you're doing. But I certainly think you guys have things going in the right direction at Cardinal. And I know a lot of people there are excited about it too.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely excited. And like Coach said and like you've brought up, you don't celebrate the losses, but if you just kind of compare scores from the last couple of years, we're knocking on the door. We're right there in a lot of games. Even against Durant, we're within a couple scores, a couple bad breaks in the first half, maybe a different outcome.
Cardinal assistant coach Tyler Archer joining us on the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner. Again, Cardinal is at Highland tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And we have just a few seconds left in the show. Again, I want to remind you of the broadcasts we have tomorrow night. Ottumwa hosting Des Moines East on KBIZ and on the live video stream at AttumwaRadioSports.com at 7:30. Davis County at Mid-Prairie, 7 o'clock. On the video stream on AttumwaRadioSports.com. Van Buren at Mediapolis, 7 o'clock on 92.7 KTWA. Pekin hosting Belle Plaine at 7 tomorrow night on 101.5 KISS FM. And Centerville hosting Sadell at 7 tomorrow night on 97.7 Tom FM. That'll do it for the Lee's Photography Coach's Corner on the Ottumwa Radio Sports Network. Coming up next, we'll turn to news. We have Ellis Kojo standing by from the City Council Hall. It's the League of Women Voters City Council Forum. Live coverage coming your way next on 1240 AM, 102.7 FM, KBIZ. Good night, everybody.